Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to beautiful Chiang Mai. If you've been following me, you know my wife has been gone for a month. I found her. All right, so we're back here and I have Dana with me. And so I've gotten some emails as to they want to see more of you on film.
Why?
But I told them I talked to your agent and it cost me $10,000 just to
Get out of bed in the morning.
have her here today. But we have a lot of new subscribers.
Okay.
And so I thought the first thing I'd do is try to get them to know you a little better.
Okie
And
doke.
first of all, let's talk about you.
Okay.
So where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in the city of New York, right in the middle of Manhattan, and pretty soon after that, my parents moved us into a house in Long Island so my dad could work in the city without being us growing up in the city. A little place called Selden. If you look at Long Island and put your finger exactly in the middle of Long Island, that's where Selden is. So from top to bottom and left to right, it's pretty much smack in the middle. So we had all four seasons, you know. We had summers at Jones Beach, which I'm a Jones now. I feel like that was significant.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. And I had a typical Gen X life, you know. You wake up in the morning, feed yourself, and then your parents kick you out until dinner time and trample all over our Long Island and bicycle riding, general tomfoolery.
So what about sports? Did you do any sports in school or any clubs or anything like that?
Early on, I was involved with dance and ballet and tap when I was little, and then I got very involved in gymnastics. That's what I loved to do. We moved to Texas when I was 16 years old in my senior year of high school. That was fun. They needed someone on the cheerleading team who knew gymnastics so they could do all those cool flips. And I tried that for about 2 months, but I wasn't very good at socializing with cheerleaders. So I just quit altogether because it just really, I was going through a rough time that time. It was really tough not knowing people and being taken out of the one place that I knew, New York, and put into Texas. But it actually turned out to be a good thing because that's where I went to school. That's what brought me to Florida, and that's how I met you.
All right, so you make your way to Florida, and so what did you do Did you work for the school system or?
Well, originally I was interested in psychology, so I got my bachelor's in psychology, and then I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with it because there's just so many things you can do with it. And I remember at the end of that time, we had a seminar of psychologists of all backgrounds come and give us a talk, and I was pulled into the area of the school system because at that time I had school-aged children. My son was just starting middle school, and my daughter was still in elementary school, and I thought, this is where I want to be with the kids. As I generally have very little patience with adults, but for kids, I can handle that pretty well.
Because you're the same size.
Exactly. Then I found out I wasn't really good at working in the high school because I'm 4'11", in a sea of high school students. I had to try to convince every single kid that I was actually a teacher and not a child.
Really?
But so I found my place in the elementary system, and that's where I stayed. Loved it.
And so that leads me to my next question. How did we meet? Now, I don't know if we have the same story.
Oh.
Well, the story I have is that you ignored me and tried to put someone else my way and.
All right. Truth be told, when we met, I was married.
Yeah.
So I am a monogamous person. That is one thing about me that I feel is very core of who I am. I am not a cheater or stealer or anything like that. So when I met this incredibly sexy individual, I did not want to get too close to him because I knew that wouldn't be a good thing. Plus, truth be told, let's just say my ex-husband and I
We're in a bad place.
We were in a bad place. And I didn't want to invite trouble into my life. I wanted to attack one problem at a time. So at that time I was working on my marriage. So when I met you, I was also going through my internship at the school system as a psychologist, and I wanted to remain professional. You made it very hard.
I was just doing my job, man. Just doing my job.
Just picture it. I'd show up to this school on Wednesdays.
Stop it.
With this incredibly uniformed, sexy officer of the law who was great with people. And that's what I think I found most attractive to you at first, was that your ability to...
She's been drinking.
Yeah, I have. The ability to mediate problems without violence, use his words like an incredible person, and just, I could see everyone around you, just how you reacted with them, and that's what I was attracted to. But since I was married, and I was really trying to work on the marriage at that time, and that was my internship, I knew someone who was also a psychologist, who was single and actively looking for a husband. She was about ready to graduate with her psychology degree in school psychology like I was, and we were good friends, worked at the same place. So I said, you need to come over to this middle school and meet this gorgeous individual. My thinking was...
I did not pay her to say that.
My thinking was that if I set them up and something happened, then I could at least have the pleasure of knowing him, in a personal regard. But over the summer, even though she gave him her number, he didn't call her, and I found out that the next fall when I started work,
next school year,
he noticed that I didn't have a wedding ring on. We went to some event at a place where he was DJing, as a side hustle of his, and I didn't know he was a DJ. And I went, actually I think I did know you were a DJ, but I didn't know you were going to be there that day. And I was like, whoa, there he is. And he goes, where's your ring? I said, don't ask, it's been quite the summer. And he goes, well, I don't want to overstep, but when you're ready, I would like you to know that I would like to take you out and treat you the way that you should be treated. And you said it better than that. You said it way better than that. But I was just like, whoa, I called him that night. So that's my story. And then we started dating, and that was it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never in my life been treated so respectfully, and I've been married twice before.
How much am I going to have to pay you for this again?
We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about it later.
But one of the things I found out, as we started dating, is that I know that you like to travel.
Yes.
And I was hearing some of the places you have been to.
Yes.
And while we were dating, you were getting ready to go on a cruise with your family, right?
Yes, so we had planned a cruise a year in advance with my mother, myself, and my daughter, and a group of her friends, my mother's friends. And that was already in the works. And by the time we went, I really didn't want to go, because it was, time that we were just getting together, and it was only a week, right? Was it a week and a half?
Yeah, 10 days.
It was forever.
They're going to think this is a dating video.
But I was there with my daughter and my mother, and we spent a glorious weekend traveling the Western Caribbean together, and some good memories from that time. Also, this is funny, that was during the days of MySpace, which I didn't really understand how to work very well, and during that time when the internet was first invented, on cruise ships, you had to go into the office space and pay for the hour on a PC in order to act. There was no phone or anything like that. You had to go specifically into the office space and contract an hour on the PC in order to access your MySpace. So I had my daughter do that for me. I said, can you just tell Fred I said hello, because I don't know how to do any of that stuff on the PC. It was funny.
Yeah. But so let's talk a little bit more about travels. Just give me a few of the countries you've been to as an adult, besides before you met me.
Okay, so I really didn't start traveling until, I don't remember going anywhere outside New York unless it was in a car. in their early years. I spent my life, I tell people I grew up in the backseat of a car at drive-in movies. We were in New York, so we went to Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Maine, all the way in between the East Coast and the Massachusetts. We have friends, dear friends in Massachusetts. And we just spent our time in there. One time, in 1978 Olympics, my dad drove us to Montreal.
Oh,
we
wow.
drove up to Montreal, and I remember waking up and in the back seat of our camper and being in someone's backyard, it looked like, and it was just a space that they had rented out, and we were watching the Montreal Olympics. I mean, that's where I think I got my great love, or I think it was already gymnastics oriented. But that's pretty much it until I was 10 years old and we made our first trip on an airplane. That was my first time to Florida. And it's ironic that we lived there after there, but it was a great time. We had 2 weeks, Disney World, Busch Gardens, back in the 70s, and it was pretty different then. Circus World, I can't even remember. Just with my grandmother, my dad's mother, before she passed, and before we moved to Texas. It was just a great time. But what I think really gave me the bug for traveling was when we went into New York City to visit relatives, and I would hear people speaking different languages.
Yeah.
That was it for me. I was like, "Oh, what's that all about?" And I just was fascinated by that. It wasn't definitely not my first marriage. We were struggling, and I was having my kids during that time. But during the second marriage, where I had a little bit of disposable income, we went on international trips to Mexico. We went on a Europe cruise, which took us to Italy, France, Spain, Croatia, all the southern Mediterranean countries. Have not been to England or the UK or Scotland or Ireland yet, but that's definitely on my list. My ex-husband was Japanese, so we spent time in Japan, all the islands. I climbed Mount Fuji, and by that time, my kids also went to Japan, and so we all had the travel bug by then.
Nice.
All of us.
So this is when I get into the marriage part of it. So it's interesting because I have some gentlemen, once in a while I get an email that says, "How did you convince your wife to move overseas?" And one of the things I knew since 2006 that I wanted to retire overseas, and at the time I was looking at South America, maybe Mexico. But before I asked her to marry me, I said, look, we had become very close, and I knew that honestly, if I was dating someone that didn't want to live overseas, that was probably a deal breaker.
Yeah.
And so I was, hoping, I was getting ready to explain why I wanted to.
I remember the look on your face
Yeah.
when this conversation happened too.
But I said, look, when I retire, when I was thinking at that time, probably 62 years old, when I retire, I want to move overseas. I said, how do you feel about that?
And I said, I already have one passport filled up. When do we start?
Yeah.
Let's
And
go.
it took me a while to get over the initial shock, but she was ready to do it. But, I recently had a friend of mine ask me, is it difficult being married and living overseas? And I asked him, so what do you mean by that? He says, well, being retired, and how do you keep things together? And so here's the thing, and
Complicated.
yeah, because you think about this, when you're working, you spend at least 8 hours
At work.
away from home from each other. You get home, you eat, you may have 2-3 hours, watch TV, talk
It's
a little bit.
utility, right? You're
Right.
trying to keep a household together and make ends meet.
Yeah,
It's a partnership.
yeah. And so now here I am, and I know you don't feel this way, but we move overseas, and there's like, man, I put her away from her daughter, our daughter,
Yeah.
and her friends over there. So what happens now that we live overseas? And here's the thing, I was looking at some stats, and they have this thing called gray divorce. And that gray divorce, GRAY, as they put it there, that gray divorce is, the numbers vary from 55 to 65. I saw from 50 to 62. But they're saying that's the age where you have that empty nest, The kids are grown. They're out of the house now. You may find out that you don't have anything in common with that person that you're with now, or maybe you're not fulfilled. You need to go find yourself. And for the men, we are known for that midlife crisis.
Starting a whole new family.
About that time,
Press the reset button. We see that all the time here. It's like these 60-year-old guys with like 2-year-olds, and it's like, what happened?
And we're not judging.
No. You do you.
Yeah.
But I really like. I see that. Yeah, where you're going. I think maybe.
Well, let me get into it. So I think, and I'll let you comment on this first. So I think, well, how do we do it? How do we stay together? I think one of the ways we stay together is our time alone.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It wasn't until recently where I discovered that I need at least 1 to 2 hours a day with nothing in my ears but quiet. And just recently I went to visit my kids in Aruba. Hi everybody. Love them, but I had to, try to get a little bit of quiet time in my ears to stay sane. That's just what I need. I don't think you realize some things that you need until you really know yourself, and that happens in the 50s, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it takes you a lifetime sometimes to get to know yourself. And in retirement, where you don't have those 8 hours at work, you're like, what do I do now? There's a lot of maybe unfulfilled, like I should have done this or I don't have any of those things. I didn't stay with the person I wasn't happy with, but if I had, I definitely would have been a great divorce.
Yeah.
With the other marriage.
But let me
I think that alone time is necessary. If you're not okay with being by yourself, then how can you truly be with somebody else?
And speaking of that alone time, we have different hobbies. And like you like roller skating, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so she likes roller skating, and I like pickleball. And
Sounds like a song.
But I spend a lot of time playing pickleball. You spend your time roller skating. You go out, you walk with the dogs. You feed the dogs.
Just learned how to ride a motorcycle last year at 57 years old, and I'm loving it. I take my time and go places and explore by myself. It's great.
Yep. And I think we got a lot of practice. When I was working in law enforcement, we had 2 separate occasions where I was gone. Once for 3 months.
Yes.
I went to the Southern Police Institute in Louisville. Make sure I pronounce it right. Louisville. In Louisville. And I was gone for 3 months. It was a 3 months training. And then I had the same situation a few years later. I went to the National Innovation Academy, which was about, an hour and a half away, but I had to stay there. And that was for another 2 months, I believe. That was 2 months.
Professional development, yeah.
Yeah. And so we're used to being alone, but the thing about being alone, I think it kind of brings us together because we get to miss each other.
Yes.
And so...
United.
And that's the first thing, I think, time alone. But I would like to say, and things were not always perfect, and they're not perfect now. But I think the number 2 thing is communication. And I think we have very good communication skills. I think we're at the point where it's not so much we walk on eggshells or we're worried about hurting each other's feelings. If something's bothering us, we talk about it.
Right.
Or
We've learned that toxic feelings kept inside leads to problems down the line, and it's just not a good idea. And when you were older, younger, you're kind of still unsure, maybe early in the marriage, how that person, what are they going to think? But we're at the age now, and at the comfortability, going on 18 years now, 17, 18 years together and married for 17 years, that we don't have that anymore. If something's bothering me, I'm not worried that if I say it, I'm going to hurt his feelings. I'm just going to be like, I say it in the nicest way I can, and I bring it up, and I say, I'd really like it if we could talk about this, and if now's not a good time, then you can tell me when it is, and we'll talk about it. And then it's out, and it's done, and it's the greatest thing.
Yeah. I think we've seen a lot of stuff where, a lot of stuff come out after years of being piled up, and then they all let it out at one time. Remember 10 years ago when you did this, and this?
Oh, sure, yeah.
But also, I think with your psychology background, that helps with communication. And with me...
Your training.
Yeah, my training. I taught emotional intelligence courses throughout the state of Florida, as well as to my own as well as to my own agency. And then here's the one thing I do. If I hear something that I don't like or it bothers me, I do that 3-second pause, because they say it takes 3 seconds to go from the emotional brain to the logical brain. So I try to process what's happening and sort of personalizing it right away. And so
Less reactionary.
yeah. So time alone,
Yes.
and then communication.
Yes.
But then there's that time together.
Yes.
And I would tell you that we always make time for each other. We do. And even though we enjoy our time apart, our time together means a lot to us. And,
Yes.
Some of the things, like we're here at Magic Bean Coffee right now, having coffee. So we do a lot of coffee together. We take a lot of bike rides through the country together and just hang out.
Yes.
But I think most of all, we spend time sitting in the living room just talking to each other.
We love movies and we love watching series. Like right now we're in the middle of watching Fallout, which is a game that many people have played, but I have no idea what the storyline is. Fred knows more about it than I do, but we talk about the characters and we talk about why didn't they do that and da-da-da-da-da, but we always pause before we talk, because I learned not to talk over a movie. So when we get to something I want to say, I just say pause, and then we can talk. So a 45-minute show can take us 2 hours to get through sometimes, because we have a lot to say about it, like, or we have to catch our breath because it's just been a part. It's just fun, like I love movies and Fred loves movies and shows, and we have just hundreds that we've watched in our marriage together that we've done that with, and we can just, that's the one thing I missed, I think, the most, was our closeness time when I was with my kids in Aruba. It's like you try to you can't have everything all at once. You have to be happy where you are, right? So when I was in Aruba with my kids, although I missed Fred, we made time to FaceTime. We made time to check in with each other. And, we had that communication. And then when the phone call ended, I was 100% with my family and our kids in immersive play or whatever we were doing in Aruba that day. And I didn't long and think about Fred being alone. I don't do that, because he can feed himself, he can clean, he can do dishes. I don't worry about him taking care of himself. He was a bachelor for 10 years before I met him. And that's also another thing that impressed me when we first got together. I'm like, you can cook for yourself? Oh my gosh.
My dad
Guys, take note. I mean, women want to be taken care of, but we don't want to be somebody's mama,
What she didn't tell you is that every time we used to, when she was in Aruba, she would get on the phone. I would be like, "Baby, come back. You can blame it all on me."
Yeah, that also helped. But I mean, taking care of yourself and being an individual and being able to bring something to the relationship, instead of being needy. Neither one of us were needy. I was fine on my own. You were fine on your own. We made each other better.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And we had similar goals.
And I think also I'm very fortunate, in that I know a lot of couples that they watch their separate movies together. Now, my wife and I, we can watch this action type movie, and she'll watch it with me, and she's interested. She's not doing it for me. She's doing it because she enjoys it also.
Right.
At the same time, I can watch a romantic comedy and enjoy it just as much. So we share a lot of the same movies. And at the same time, I say, hey, you want to watch this? No, I don't think that's me. Okay, I'll watch it by myself.
Exactly.
And same thing with her. So
we have our stuff that we watch together that we only watch together, like, the series that we are involved in. And the only exception to that was when I was in Aruba. Stranger Things had their season finale, and we both agreed before I left, I'm sorry, but I am not going to be able to wait until January to watch the end of this.
She's a binge watcher.
I don't know if any of you guys out there were Stranger Things people, but it was like one of the best series, probably because of the Gen X factor. I love the storyline, but oh my gosh. So we got permission with each other, if you will, to finish it while we were, and then we came together to discuss it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think the last thing is I think I always keep track of my why. And what I mean by that is, why did we get married? And I will always remember that. And, we got married because we love each other, but also we're good for each other. And anytime we have a disagreement, you know, why is this a disagreement? You know, I know this woman won't do anything to hurt me intentionally. And so I keep that kind of stuff in mind. And, you know, a lot of times we're told to live in the moment. And I agree with that 100%. Be in the moment. But also, I think there's a time to reach back and say, you know, one of the reasons why I love her is that she brought me to some of my darkest times. And I always keep that in mind because I would be a mess still if it wasn't for her. And so, you know, it is a work in progress, and you know, we're not here to be marriage counselors.
It was not always like this. We had to figure a lot of stuff out during the first 8 years of our marriage. I mean, they say the 7-year itch, right? Is like what the year is. So for all you newly married people out there, if you really want to be together, that's what I heard. I think it was Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn that said, you know, because people keep asking them, you know, you guys are both famous, you've been together for so long, Paul Newman and his wife, what keeps you together? And they say, we want to be together. We choose each other. This is my person. And we don't want to, you have to remember that sometimes when you're feeling. We've both been hurt before. We have to remember, don't take that out on each other just because you have stuff from, recognize what it is that's initiated that feeling and deal with it, or speak about, unpack it, talk about it, write it down. At least recognize it.
And this makes me circle back around to being retired overseas. You know, when I say I think that we have to work harder is not a bad word. What I mean by that is I think we have to be more aware, you know, and I check in with her. You know, are you still happy here? You know, you think about somewhere else. And, you know, I think also, and I'm a big Mel Robbins fan. And one of the things she had a guest on there is that reminded couples especially to check in with each other. Now, my wife is an amazing cook. And some of the things I like she used to make these wonderful stuffed peppers. And I love the stuffed peppers. But then there come a time where I don't like stuffed peppers so much. But I'm able to tell her that.
I didn't take that personal either, because I know I get sick of food sometimes too.
And that's just like, you know, the person that met you in 2008, you know, that like not the same person in 2026, and it's okay to say those things. I guess that goes back to communication.
Do you want stuffed peppers?
Hey, but you know, like I said, folks, you move over here with your spouse. It's possible. You know, talk about the hard things. You know, I miss my mom. I miss my mom. Something terrible.
I miss the kids.
And we have that conversation. It's not enough to drive us back to the States because we love it here so much. But it is possible to survive here. I think we're thriving here. I think we are more intentional about our time.
Yes.
I think we're more intentional about communicating.
Intentional about when we get together with our family, making the most out of that time instead of just living next to them and taking everything, not that I did it before, but taking the time for granted, you know, like we'd go someplace together and do something and it'd be like, okay, see you, and that's nice. But like now when I go visit the kids, I'm sucking up every second and I'm immersed in this and thankful for every moment. And I don't think I did that before. I don't. So. Well,
I just got a text from your agent that says,
wait till you get my invoice.
My time is up with you. So, hey, folks, we just wanted to come on and just talk about that because I know people who have struggled in retirement, and that's being back at home where they're comfortable at, where they have family and stuff, and so. You know, can it add additional challenges if you decide to retire overseas? Yeah, it can. But it's really no difference in the sense that build community, continue to communicate.
Stay connected.
I think grow as an individual and then grow together as well. So that's our magic potion. You know, we still work through problems, but we have solutions for those problems too as well. So that's all I have.
Hey, I'm going to say hi to the kids. I love you. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Hey.
And hello, everybody. If you're just subscribing for the first time.
Yes.
Good to meet you.
Please hit that like button, too. Well, let me know what you think down in the comments. What do you think about retirement? Do you have any concerns about retiring with your spouse? About concerns about retiring together overseas? Let me know down in the comments.
Or Stranger Things.
Yep.
What you think about the finale?
We love you, and I'm gonna get her back to her handler, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.